Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the MMA Corner Prediction Show. As tonight we give you our thoughts and predictions on UFC Fight Night 41, Munoz versus Mousasi. As always, tonight's episode is brought to you by Battle Bomb, the only pain reliever with the knockout power. BattleBomb.com. Check them out. Audio for tonight's episode is powered by Soul. Power, clarity, comfort. Soul Electronics. Get you some. I'm your host, Josh Davis, alongside my panel, featured columnists at the MMAcorner.com, Jason Shelkey and Justin Fuller. Pow! Pow! Guys, I don't know what to say. To be real honest, for mid-afternoon Fight Pass card, I think this is a pretty solid event. But I'll get to my thoughts in a moment. Jason, start the show off. Give us your thoughts.
I mean, it is a pretty good card. I think it's a good outlet to showcase some more local talent because there are quite a few fighters on this card that we haven't seen before. So it's going to be a good experience for us to be able to see new talent that's overseas that we haven't been able to see before within the UFC. So, apart from the main event, there's some good fights that's going to show the next generation of fighters upcoming, and I'm looking forward to seeing some good action on Saturday afternoon.
Justin, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I can get, a whole afternoon and an evening of fights for free, I'm never complaining. And this isn't the strongest fight night card, but as far as Fight Pass goes, it's pretty decent. We got a couple ranked guys fighting in it. And I'm starting to take my approach to not just the Fight Pass cards, but the Fight Night cards in general as sort of like the UFC's, reboot of the Challenger cards. And kind of like their version of it. So we get to see some local talent. We get more cards, and we get a few people we recognize, but we also get to showcase some guys we haven't heard of yet.
Well, see, and that's the big thing. Giving these guys that nobody's ever heard of an opportunity to shine in front of essentially the general public. And if the UFC doesn't do this, we'll never know about these guys because they'll always be stuck on the prelims. But this gives them an opportunity to shine, an opportunity to generate a fan base, and an opportunity to get on these pay-per-view cards and make real money. So I agree with you, Justin. I do think that is what the UFC is doing. They haven't come out and officially said as much, but I do think that's what we're seeing here. And again, to be real honest, I think it's good for the UFC. I think it's good for, again, every area that they go to because, again, you get a lot of local fighters and that kind of stuff. So smart business for the UFC. Now, is it the strongest card? Absolutely not. But, again, it's the middle of the day. It's a Saturday afternoon. I think it's a solid Fight Pass card, again, leading into the Tough Brazil finale. So what else can you ask for from the UFC? It's not like they can give us 10 title fights, but all in all, I do think it's a solid card. So with that being said, let's get right into the main card. There are some fights on the preliminary card that I'm excited for. We're not going to break them down, but Nick Hein and Drew Dober I do think is going to be a exciting fight. Maximo Blanco and Andy Ogle is another fight that I'm looking forward to. So there are some exciting fights. Definitely make sure that you check out the preliminary card. It does start at noon Eastern. So that would be 9 a.m. On the West Coast. It's an early morning, but definitely get up and check it out. All right, main card: Nicholas Backstrom versus Tom Ninamaka. Now, Nicholas Backstrom, if you haven't heard of this guy, go YouTube him, check him out. A lot of people call him the Swedish Anderson Silva. He's 7-0 with 1 no contest. The guy's got a lot of skills. He's definitely vicious. So if you haven't heard of him, check him out. But Justin, start us off. Give us your thoughts on the card.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an exciting fight. Again, I don't care if you know who these guys are not. After the fight, you're definitely going to know. With Nicholas, I love seeing these guys with a lot of hype come at him, getting good fights right off the bat, getting a good showcasing. And this is a billing on the card he never would have gotten in any other country or in any other continent, really. So while he's not a German fighter, he's definitely a continental fighter, and he's going to get a better billing than the Americans on the card for the most part. And for Tom Ninamaki, I thought he actually looked pretty good against Rani Yaya. But I'm definitely curious to see where he goes from here. He had a pretty good run there for a while, and this is going to make a sophomore performance in the UFC. So as far as matchups goes, it's perfect. You got a guy who coming off a split decision on his first fight, facing a guy making his debut. That's right where they need to be career-wise. And as far as picks go, I'm going to give it to Nicholas. I think he's going to live up to the hype.
Now,
Jason.
I did YouTube some footage on Nicholas Backstrom, and he has some really awesome striking. If you haven't checked it out, like Josh said, you need to look him up on YouTube. His striking, especially for 145er, is just it's incredible to watch. And I think that he's going to put Ninamaki in some trouble with his striking. Now, while Ninamaki is a little more well-rounded in his game, from the footage I saw, I don't know if he's going to be able to hang with Backstrom, so I'm going to take him by second-round TKO. I think he's going to have a really good performance. He's going to turn some heads his way, and I think he's going to put on an exciting performance. And yeah, look and see him in the UFC again.
Now, Ninamaki is no slouch. He's on a 13-fight win streak. Wins over Ronnie Yaya, Willel Watson, and Chase Beebe in his last 3 fights. So he certainly has fought some competition, and like I said, a 13-fight win streak. But I like Nicholas Backstrom, and I'm not saying that the guy is a Swedish Anderson Silva or anything like that, but I do like his skills. I did YouTube him. I did watch some of his fights. He's got very crisp, very technical striking. He's precise with his punches. He's very accurate. I like him in this fight. I think he's going to be able to do things to Tom that other people haven't, and I think his striking is going to be too much for Tom to handle, and so I'm going Nicholas in this fight. I actually think that he'll probably get either a second or a third round TKO in this one. All right, moving right along, we got Luke Barnett versus Sean Strickland. This is a fight that I'm really intrigued about because we have 2 guys that if people have not been paying attention, you might not know anything about him. Sean Strickland debuted in the UFC at UFC 171 with a complete domination of Bubba McDonald. UFC released Bubba after that. But guy's 14-0. He's no slouch. He's certainly got a lot of potential, and I am looking forward to this fight because he really does match up well against Luke. Now, Luke's no scrub either. He's also 8-0. He has a couple of fights in the UFC already, so he's got over all the octagon jitters, that kind of stuff. But I like Sean in this fight. I think Sean Strickland is going to, again, come in and show the world that he is the real deal, and people need to take notice. I'm going Strickland. Chucky, get in here, Justin, follow him up.
Well, I think, Sean Strickland, he has good power. We haven't seen that much of him in UFC because, like you said, he did just steamroll straight through Bubba McDonald. Took him, less than a round to dispose of him. Now Bubba's gone. So now this fight, I think, is what we're going to see of what Strickland's actually made of. Luke Barnett, I keep on wanting to hear the Big Show's theme song saying the Big Slow right now. He's a 6'6" middleweight, and I think that if he can use his reach to keep Strickland at bay, Strickland's going to be in for a long night. But that's a big if. Because if Strickland gets on the inside, he does have the power to take out Luke. But I think Luke will be able to use his sizable. He's got a huge reach advantage coming into this fight. He's a 6'6" middleweight. That's just insane. And so I don't think that it's going to be the most exciting of fights. I'm going to take Luke by decision this one. I think he's going to use his reach advantage, keep the distance, and keep Strickland at bay and not be able to get inside to where he can utilize that punching power.
Justin.
I think with Luke his submission defense and his wrestling is way underrated, and I think it's always his wrestling's improving every time we see him. And there's just that conventional knowledge that the Brits don't have good wrestling or wrestling defense. Well, we've been saying that for over 10 years, and they've been hearing that for over 10 years. So it's something they're always working on. No, they're never going to be at the level that some of the Americans with that base come in, but at the same time, they're going to know what to do. It's MMA, and I think that, Sean, he did have that good performance against Bubba, but Bubba had yet to, defeat anyone who had already competed in the UFC before. His one win was against Gilbert Smith, who he was in the house with on the Tough finale, where Barnett's now he's going into his fourth fight in the octagon, so he doesn't, he knows how to perform in that cage. He knows how to win, and he doesn't have as many fights under his belt, but he's got a lot more fights under his belt under the Big Show, and I think he's going to get a TKO in the later rounds.
And I do like Luke. I think the kid's got a lot of talent, and he's 8-0 for a reason. In this fight, I do like Sean. I think Sean's going to be able to get inside. I think he's going to be able to work this fight to the ground and grab onto one of those long arms and possibly get a submission. All right, moving right along, Francis Carmont, CB Dollaway in the co-main event. This fight is very intriguing for me, but Jason, start us off. Justin, follow him up.
Man, this is a really intriguing fight because CB Dollaway is like the guy that never goes away. He's been a stable in the division for so long, but yet he's not ranked. He's never been ranked, but he's just always a stable performer who's always going to come and he's going to bring it. I mean, just look at his last fight. He derailed the Cesar Ferreira hype train, just completely blasted him out in that first round, just knocked him out cold. But in Francis Carmon, he's coming off that loss to who did he lose to?
Gator, man, Jacare.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Jacare. And but he was running a 3-fight win streak, or actually, longer than that. In the UFC, he'd won his past 6
He was on
fights.
an 11. He was on an 11-fight win streak before Jacare derailed.
Yeah, 6-0 in the UFC before that.
Right, and Jacare was his first loss inside the cage. So I think this is going to be a good bounce back fight for Carmon. I think Dollaway does present some problems to him, especially in the wrestling. But then again, you also can never downplay his power either, as we saw in his last fight. But I think Carmon, at this point of his career, he's just a better fighter. I think he's on the rise, and I'm going to take him by second round TKO.
Justin.
I like this fight a lot. I think some people might think that Carmont should maybe be fighting someone ranked, but aside, he dismantled Costa pretty effortlessly, but then he hit the brick wall that is Jacare. So I think CB is a staple of the division, as a guy who's never going to quit, as a guy who's always going to bring it and always going to put on a show. And for longtime fans of the UFC who know him, that this is the perfect fight for Carmont to get him back on track if to work his way back up. And it's a good fight for CB. There's no reason he can't get big fights himself. He's been in there with some of the best. This one's going to come back, recover from that loss. Like, he's lost in the past, but he hasn't lost in the UFC. And when you go on a streak like that and, you hit a speed bump, we don't know what happens to guys all the time. We've seen guys with a lot of hype behind him fail to live up to it when they get a little bit of resistance. But CB's been in there before. And I think he's going to pull out split decision win. I think he's just going to keep putting pressure on him and, maybe take some big shots, but he's going to come right back at him with shots of his own and be able to pull one out. For the upset, yeah.
I like CB because he is a gamer. He does always come to fight. He doesn't always look good, but he does always come to fight. With that being said, he's a guy that I can never get right. I pick him to win, he loses. I pick him to lose, he wins. And there's a couple guys out there that do me like that, and CB's just one of them.
Like, they got it out for you.
They do.
How dare they?
They could not be on my fantasy team because, they just kill me like that. But in this fight, in this matchup, again, it's very intriguing because I do think that if CB game plans correctly and uses his skill set correctly, he can control this fight with his wrestling, with takedowns, getting dominant position, that kind of stuff. However, I don't think he will. I think CB's going to want to stand and strike with Francis. I think he's going to be willing to engage with Francis in the clinch, and I think those are going to be areas where he finds that he lacks. And I really do think that Francis is going to be able to bounce back from his loss to Jacare. I mean, he was steamrolling everyone before Jacare got a hold of him, and so I do think he's going to bounce back. I think he's going to put a stamp on CB and get the victory. So 2 votes for Francis and 1 incorrect split decision vote for CB Holloway. All right, guys, moving right along. Main event time. Gegard Mousasi versus Mark Munoz. Now, both these guys, ironically, are coming off losses to Lyoto Machida. Munoz lost to Machida back in October. I don't remember what it was there. It is UFC Fight Night, Machida versus Munoz. And then, obviously, Gegard lost to Machida back at UFC Fight Night, Machida versus Mousasi. Here's the thing. I like Munoz, but I think he's overrated. I've always thought that. His victories in the UFC have been decent, but he doesn't have that true top quality win. Yes, he beat Damian Maia. He beat CB Holloway. He got the split decision over Yushin Okami. That's his biggest win. You know, he's not. To me, he doesn't deserve all the hype. He's never won a main event fight, and to be honest, I don't think this Saturday is going to be any different. I think he's going to drop another main event fight. I think he's a gatekeeper to the division at best. While he does have a lot of skills and he is a great fighter, I just don't think he's going to be able to take Mousasi down and control position, and that's what he's going to need to do to win this fight. As far as striking goes, if he, gets him with one of his haymakers, he might damage Mousasi, but his Mousasi striking's too crisp. He uses too many angles. I think he's going to be able to dance around Mark Munoz, pick him apart on the feet, and if he can't get a TKO stoppage, he definitely will win the decision. Justin, give us your thoughts. Jason, follow it up.
Yeah, I think both these guys are going to be looking to, get that main event fight night win. Definitely when they fight a Machida, it doesn't work out well. I'm almost thinking Machida should try and fight exclusively as the main event on fight night cards. He might not get those pay-per-view dollars, but
he would be unbeatable.
He's the best. So he was undefeated in the light heavyweight division for a while. Let's see if he can be undefeated in the middleweight. But with Munoz, I think with him, it's when he's able to put everything together, he looks amazing. But then when he's in there with those best of the best, and when you look at the guys like, Okami, Wheatman, Machida, that he's lost to in the division, it's kind of like, well, there's no shame in that, but, with those 3 losses and your biggest wins being over Tim Bosch and Damian Maia, you kind of got to put together a little bit more of a resume if you're really talking about being in the top 5 of that division and talking about getting on a title shot or getting back on track. With Mousasi, though, I don't know. I'm really curious to see how he comes back from that loss. He's 1-1 in the UFC, but his first win, we just kind of treat as a buy. Like, okay, here's a guy to beat to get your paycheck. Let's see what you can do. But Machida was his first real test in the UFC, and he definitely performed better than Munoz did. And I'm thinking Mousasi knows what it's like to be in big fights. Obviously not. He knows what it's like to lose, and he knows what it's like to come back big. And we haven't really seen Munoz come back, get any kind of streak going since that loss to Weidman. So my pick's going to be Mousasi. I think he's just going to control the fight for all 5 rounds. Or not comes forward like he usually does, because he's going to be worried about that takedown, but that he's going to be able to outmaneuver Munoz throughout the fight.
All right. Shelky. Wrap it up.
I have a hard time picking Munoz in this fight because his last quality win was back in 2011 when he defeated Damian Maia. People can argue that the Bosch win was quality, but you know, at this stage of Bosch's career, I don't know. But the good thing about Mousasi is he always performs better whenever he has a fighter in front of him that's going to bring the fight. And we know that Munoz will bring the fight to Mousasi. And so I'm sure they're both not happy coming off their respective losses to Lyoto Machida. But I think Mousasi is going to finally bring his A game and show the UFC why he was so highly touted coming in. But I'm not going to completely run off Munoz because he does train his striking with Nonito Donaire, who once upon a time was top at the top of the boxing pound for pound list. So you can never sleep on his striking, but I do think Mousasi is going to take this. I think we're going to see the Mousasi that had the huge hype train behind him, and I think it's going to be a really exciting fight.
Yeah, I think it is going to be a decent fight. And don't take anything away from Munoz's striking, because he does have decent striking. It's not on the level of Gegard Mousasi's, but, Munoz does have decent striking. He was able to, basically knock out Lieben. He got the TKO stoppage, whatever, but he beat the crap out of Lieben with strikes. He does have all right striking. He's just, like I said, he's not on that level, and I think in this fight, he's going to get danced around and picked apart.
He's able to use his striking when guys are trying to implement a ground game. I mean, and Lieben's kind of the exception, but at the same time, that's not like 100% whole healthy Lieben that he was fighting either. That was a Lieben towards the tail end of his career. But when you look at like Bosch or Maia, like when guys think they're going to be able to use a ground game against Munoz is when his striking's going to come out and shine.
Exactly. All right, real quickly, Jason, final thoughts on the card.
It's going to be an exciting card. I think Saturday's just going to be if you're a fight fan, Saturday starting at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, you're going to have a great day. You're going to have so many fights to watch. It's going to be ridiculous. I mean, you're definitely going to get your fill of fights for Saturday. So check them all out.
Justin?
Look, motherfuckers, if you're some sad, lonely kid sitting in nowhere, Minnesota, you got nothing better to do on a Saturday morning than to watch the UFC. If you're like me, I'm on the beach. I'm going to be surfing all Saturday morning, but that's okay because prelims don't come on until 12:30, and I'll be right back in my house with a cold beer watching me some fucking free UFC fights on Fight Pass. So if you don't have Fight Pass, get it. It's only $10. You get all the fights, and watch this shit so that way you can tune into us Saturday afternoon to break it down. You know what the fuck we're talking about. Be there. Or you can sit in your basement with your buddies drinking Mountain Dew, playing Call of Duty, touching yourselves.
Damn straight. I don't even know what else to say to that. Pow! 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 All right. In all realness, yeah, definitely check both these cards out. UFC Fight Night 41, Munoz versus Mousasi, and you have tough Brazil finale as well. So Saturday is stacked with fights. Definitely check it out. We will be back here Saturday afternoon immediately following UFC Fight Night 41 to break down the fights and do everything that Justin just said we would do. And then I don't know what else to say. So with that being said, all right, guys, for Pow, Justin Fuller, for Jason Sharkey, I am Josh Davis. Keep living the MMA Corner lifestyle. We'll see you on Saturday. Peace.